Hello and welcome to ITV News West Country with Seb and Kylie.
Thank you for joining us. The headlines this Monday evening. The first asylum seekers arrive on Portland to be housed on the Bibby Stockholm. Portland's mayor criticises the government's handling.
I think the Home Office have behaved deplorably throughout the whole of this process. These are human beings. Like I said before, we have no reason to be frightened of other human beings.
An investigation begins into a huge fire at a storage yard close to Plymouth's Marsh Mill shopping centre.
Also in the programme tonight, how drone technology could be used to save lives on Cornish beaches.
And the celebrations for the Green Army as Plymouth Argyle notch up their first win after championship promotion. Good evening. After months of controversy and weeks of delays, the first group of people seeking asylum have been moved onto a barge at Portland in Dorset.
The Bibby Stockholm is expected to house 500 male migrants within the coming weeks as part of the government's plans to reduce reliance on hotels, which are currently costing £6 million a day.
Local residents and campaigners again raised concerns today with fears about safety, welfare and the impact on local services. Well, for more on this, our reporter Marina Jenkins is on Portland for us. Marina, what's been the reaction there to today's arrivals?
It's been quite mixed, Kylie. Yes, the Portland port has been a hive of activity today, and yes, a handful of asylum seekers have now arrived on board the Bibby Stockholm. As they came in various vehicles, people lined the streets, first of all one protesting the barge, but also very much wanting to show their support to the asylum seekers by waving and cheering to them. It was thought that around 50 would arrive today, but actually it seems that around 20 or even fewer than 20 have arrived today, and one of the reasons for that is because of the group Care for Calais, who have been campaigning on behalf of a number of asylum seekers, and they have stopped around 20 from boarding the barge, saying that it is inhumane and that they will also continue working on various cases over the coming weeks to help others.
We fundamentally oppose the use of the Bibby Stockholm as, I might almost say, a warehouse to stack asylum seekers into. We're now at an average of something like 450 days for the Home Office to arrive at a decision for an asylum claim. That means that individuals that go on this barge will be there for a long, long time.
Now, the government maintains its stance that housing people on places like barges is a great cost-saving method. Around £6 million a day could be saved housing them on places like a barge than in hotels. But there has been several delays and mixed messaging over the past few months. Just this morning, an immigration minister said that all 500 would arrive by the end of the week. But this afternoon, Number 10 says, no, that's not the case. And actually, it's going to take a lot longer than that. Now, a bit earlier, I spoke to the mayor of Portland, who says that today's example is just another example of why this situation hasn't been handled particularly well.
I think the Home Office have behaved deplorably throughout the whole of this process. They failed to do any kind of meaningful consultation with anybody. I heard the minister talking about 500 people being here by the end of the week. It's those kind of irresponsible statements by the Home Office that allow fears to be stoked up. These are human beings. Like I said before, we have no reason to be frightened of other human beings.
Now, another reason for the delays was concerns over fire safety issues. The Fire Brigades Union said that there could be a potential death trap on board with overcrowding in the 222 rooms. But the Home Office says that some amendments has been made, which is why asylum seekers have now started to arrive. But one thing that will be waiting for the men when they do get on board are these care packages, which have been organised by a local support group, which includes things like toiletries, pens and papers for when the men start English lessons and many other useful things that they may appreciate.
We had a postcard and it's got our phone number, which is all going to be shared around local Portland residents, and we're all going to take turns. So if the asylum seeker want to phone it for support or help or friendship or just to meet people in the local community. But I hope they just know there is care and support and we welcome them.
Well, this has been a controversial and long-running issue. Yes, the first asylum seekers have arrived today and more will come in the coming days and weeks. The protesters that we've seen today will no doubt want to continue to get their voices heard over the coming weeks. But for the government, their plan to move people out of hotels and into other places like barges, well, their plan has finally got underway today.
Marina, thank you. On to other news now. Police are investigating the cause of a large fire which broke out at a storage yard near the A38 in Plymouth last night.
Well, let's get more on this and join Sam Blackledge. Sam, what's the latest on this?
Well, Seb, this was a significantly large fire. It started, as you say, at about 11 o'clock last night at this pallet storage yard. It's just off the A38 in the Marsh Mills area of the city. Now, we're told that the flames spread very, very quickly and could be seen all across the city. Many people on social media last night posting pictures and videos, and you can see from some of these images that we can show you just how high the flames got. The fire service said they received more than 70 calls and they sent 5 fire engines to the incident who worked through the night, and they were still here this morning just clearing up and making sure that the scene was safe. Now, there had been concerns initially that the fire was very close to the railway line, which just runs alongside the site here to the rear of it. So the police were called alongside ambulance crews and representatives from Network Rail. The latest update that we have is that Devon and Cornwall Police are investigating the cause of the fire.
OK, Sam, thank you very much.
South Western Rail are reminding people there will be disruption to services this week. It's due to a ban on working overtime for members of the ASLEF union. Commuters are being warned to check before they travel because of reduced services and cancellations.
Voters in Castle Carey are being reminded to bring ID when they head to the polls later this week. A by-election has been called to fill the vacant seat in Somerset Council following the death of councillor Mike Lewis in May.
More than 5,000 people came together to celebrate Plymouth Pride on Saturday. The day saw dancers, musicians and poets from the LGBTQ+ community perform on multiple stages in Central Park. And despite strong winds leading to parts of the festival being cancelled, organisers have hailed the annual event a success and say significantly more people attended than last year.
Now, RNLI lifeguards are trialling the use of drones to help keep people safe in Cornwall.
The experiment at Crantock Beach near Newquay allows lifeguards to broadcast safety messages and to keep an eye on the more remote parts of the beach, but people won't be recorded. Charlotte Gay went to see how they'll work.
Taking off.
It's lift-off for lifeguards in Crantock, who found a new way of keeping people safe. This RNLI drone gives an unparalleled view from above, which Lucas and Harry have been testing with holidaymakers this week.
They're sort of a bit confused at the start, I think, just because it's so new.
The idea was inspired by Australian lifeguards who use it for shark spotting, but it's been adapted for the challenges of the North Cornwall coast, including the collapsing sand dunes and the tidal caves.
So we'll take the quad bike up there normally, and we just go in the caves and just warn people that the tide's coming in because that whole area gets cut off. But now we can just fly the drone and do an announcement, and sort of echoes through the caves, and everyone's aware then.
Well, one of the reasons Crantock Beach was chosen for this trial is because of the River Gannel. It cuts through the centre of the beach, making it very difficult for lifeguards to access all areas. So having an eye in the sky, it helps keep more people here safe.
And those holidaying near Newquay are the first to see it and hear it in action.
This is a message from the RNLI lifeguards. If you are swimming or bodyboarding today, please stay within the red and yellow flagged area.
I think it's positive because there's a lot of people on the beach. There's a lot of eyes needed everywhere, especially with younger children. And the more eyes on the beach, the better.
When you're actually out there, you can't hear the lifeguards on the beach anyway, so it seems a good idea to me.
Even when you're down by the river and it comes from behind you, it's very muffled and it gets carried on the wind.
They did feel like they were being spied upon. I understand the need for safety, but I think there's a balance, and I think it needs to be maybe on very rough seas. It's a good idea.
The lifeguards have been using them proactively, so they're not actually in the air all the time being flown. For the normal functions of the drone, we don't record, so it's just used as an observation piece of equipment for us. So the images are streamed back to the lifeguards up at the base, and they're able to see what's happening at that time.
This drone can fly into 30-mile-an-hour winds, and it is of course waterproof, but it also has the capability to drop life-saving equipment, although that function isn't yet being used.
For us, it's about getting to the casualty as quick as possible. Research tells you the quicker you effect a rescue, the more chance of survival. So what a drone does is it allows you to get a piece of equipment to a casualty quicker than anything else, really. And those split seconds that you can save ultimately could result in saving someone's life, and that's really important.
While lifeguards often have enviable views, this trial's certainly giving them a different perspective. Charlotte Gay, ITV News, Crantock.
It's actually a really good idea.
It's interesting, isn't it? My only slight reservation is sometimes the drones can be a bit noisy. So if you're having a nice relaxing day on the beach and then hear that kind of buzz.
Buzzing, yes.
But, for safety-wise, it makes complete sense.
Mostly telling, I like the idea of it telling you.
Yeah.
What you're in danger. I think that's the
absolutely,
that's the great thing. Right, you're watching ITV News in the West Country. Thank you for joining us. We've got plenty more still ahead before 6:30. In football, a cracking start to the new season for Exeter City as they celebrate a 3-0 away win.
And Charlie will be here with the forecast, and that's looking a bit better, Charlie.
I was going to say exactly the same things. Big improvements on a couple of days ago. It may not last all that long, but I think we'll take anything that's a bit more summery for the time being. See you later.
First, though, the chief executive of UK Scouts has said they feel disappointed and let down by the organiser of the World Scout Jamboree in South Korea.
Matt Hyde told ITV News that a number of issues on the campsite meant it was no longer safe for the 4,500 scouts from the UK, including a large contingent from here in the West Country.
Yes, he claims there were problems with sanitation, food and medical care, and also questioned whether enough was being done to protect scouts from the hot weather. Lauren Hall reports.
This isn't the Jamboree experience our scouts were expecting when they travelled from the West Country to South Korea. Thousands of young people have been relocating to the capital city Seoul, swapping their tents for hotel rooms. They're now set to be followed by tens of thousands more. At this earlier press conference, we heard details of an approaching typhoon, prompting the decision to close down the World Scout Jamboree. Our scouts set off the week before last for what was supposed to be the ultimate camping trip.
Where are we going? South Korea!
But they were only at the campsite a few days. According to the head of UK Scouts, it was no longer safe to stay.
We are disappointed and feel let down by the organisers. We raised concerns repeatedly, we had reassurances that things were going to be put in place, but I'm afraid it was too little too late.
The UK contingent says it pulled out due to issues with sanitation and medical care, as well as a lack of food. There was also a heat wave causing concern.
You can't gamble with young people's lives. That's why we took the view that we should leave here for Seoul, and now we're putting on an engaging programme working with other partners and ensuring those young people still have great memories.
The Jamboree's organisers were trying to improve conditions before the news of the tropical storm. They're now rolling out an emergency evacuation plan for the tens of thousands of scouts from other countries who are still at the campsite. Back in Seoul, the British Embassy stepped in and is helping to organise a new programme of activities.
It is sad, I think, for some that we had to leave because we obviously did sign up to be in a jamboree. But I think everyone does understand why we had to go.
I was sad to leave the jamboree, however, I think it is for the best because I wasn't feeling that great. And now we've got aircon, so I'm feeling much better now.
Their trip will certainly be memorable. The challenge now is to make sure it's for the right reasons. Lauren Hall, ITV News.
I feel so bad for them.
Such a shame, isn't it?
They were so looking forward to it when we heard from them first. Oh, never mind. Right, the ITV News continues with the national and international stories at 6:30. Here's Lucrezia.
England are through to the World Cup quarter-finals, but it took some penalty heroics to see the Lionesses scrape past Nigeria to secure the win after a nail-biting tie. Also, the first asylum seekers board the controversial Bibi Stockholm barge in Dorset. David Hunter and what his wife said when she begged him to kill her at their retirement home in Cyprus. And inside the lab working to fight future pandemics, preparing for what is being called Disease X. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
But next tonight, although the summer holidays haven't long begun, many parents will already be buying new school uniforms for the start of the year. But despite government rules intended to make uniforms more affordable, new data shows that some parents are still spending hundreds of pounds in schoolwear shops.
Well, the Children's Society says uniforms are becoming a financial burden for families and more needs to be done to ease the pressure on parents. Amrit Birdie has more.
This uniform swap shop in St Austell in Cornwall was started to help struggling families with the cost of school uniforms. And they say this year demand is higher than ever.
We've had about 25 to 30% increase this year on last year. More and more people are coming in. We're putting this down to the cost of living crisis. People are having to choose between heating, eating and clothing. And we shouldn't have clothing poverty. Everyone has a right to clothing and every child should have the right to a proper school uniform.
Their story matches up with the national picture, which shows that the cost of secondary school uniforms is on the rise. According to charity, the Children's Society, on average, parents are spending £422 a year on secondary school uniforms. That's up from £337 in 2020. They also found that 29% of secondary school pupils are required to own up to 5 branded school items.
Parents are struggling right now. Life is hard for too many families. People are struggling to put food on the table and to pay the bills. School uniforms should not be breaking parents' banks. And it's coming into the season now where parents are going to have to think about this because September's around the corner. And I know there are too many parents stressed about this right now.
Earlier this year, several charities and trade bodies signed a letter calling for the removal of VAT on school-specific uniform items. The Schoolwear Association backed the campaign, but they say spending money on uniforms should always be seen as an investment.
What people need to think about is what uniform is, and it's an item. These items of clothing are worn for 195 days a year. It lasts a long time, so yes, there is a cost in it, but actually what's the alternative? And that we strongly believe that alternative would be more expensive than the cost of uniform, which is built to last and built to give good value over the lifetime.
In 2021, the government published guidelines for schools to keep uniform costs down, including keeping school branded items to a minimum and making sure that second-hand options were available. The government told us they expect all schools to be compliant by next month and that they will continue to work with responsible bodies and schools to ensure the guidance is followed and uniform policies are reasonable. But for those parents shopping for uniforms this summer, there's no guarantee it won't break the bank. Amrit Birdie, ITV News.
Well, now it's time for a look at the sport as the football season gets underway and the England rugby squad for the upcoming World Cup is announced.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
Well, as you can see, Ross is in the studio with us. Ross, we'll talk about the football and the good news that it brings. But let's talk rugby first, because the World Cup squad has been announced, but not great news for Exeter Chiefs, is that?
No, it really isn't. It feels like we've been spoiled almost, really, in recent years, doesn't it? And recent tournaments as well, with the number of Exeter Chiefs players that have been involved. But yeah, as you say, the squad announcement today, and not a single one in there, unfortunately. Now, with most of their experienced internationals moving to France, Henry Slade was the main hope for some West Country involvement. He went to the 2015 World Cup and also featured in Japan 4 years ago, but he'll be watching on ITV with the rest of us when that tournament kicks off later this year.
Going to be interesting to see how that develops, Ross. But moving on to better news then,
yes.
Much better for our football teams.
Definitely, much better, yeah. Really good news. I mean, it feels like we waited an awfully long time for Argyle's first match back in the Championship, 13 years. And it really didn't disappoint, did it? I mean, they were welcoming Huddersfield, who were managed by their former manager, Neil Warnock, so there was that added extra to it as well. But in that match, they got off to an absolute flyer, picking right up where they left off last year. Now, we made a lot of their two big signings in the summer when they were able to bring Morgan Whittaker and Bali Mumba back to the club. Both of those players cost £1 million and they both scored. Whittaker taking just 6 minutes to get on the score sheet. But take a look at this goal instead. Definitely the goal of the game. It was Bali Mumba with this. He beat a number of men before slotting home to put them back ahead and sparking wild celebrations at home park. Ryan Hardy as well, obviously top scorer last season, got in on the act as well, and he sent the Green Army home. Very happy indeed, a 3-1 win for them. Now, I know it is very, very early, but to have a little bit of fun, should we take a look at the league table? Feels like we should. Take a look. In third place in the Championship, flying high, Plymouth Argyle there. I don't think many fans will be complaining too much if they're there in a couple of games' time, or who knows, maybe even months' time. We'll see. Premier League, wait and see what happens. But not forgetting the other team, obviously, in the leagues as well. Exeter City, let's take a look at the League One table, because they're second after a fantastic result in their match away at Wycombe. The league table doesn't lie. An amazing start for them. They faced a tough trip away from home. Now, the team's had a little bit of a revamp in recent weeks over the summer, lost some key personnel, but they've replaced them well, and it was one of their new signings that got them off to a flyer. Jack Aitchison scored this one less than a minute into his debut for the team. Now, they followed it up very quickly after with another goal by Will Aimson, and unbelievably, they could have been 3-0 up within the first 10 minutes, but Sam Nombe, the star striker, did miss a penalty. This goal here, James Scott late on in the match, rounded off a first game for them in style. Absolutely fantastic. Now, we're obviously going to be talking a lot about the National League South, a lot of West Country involvement in that, but the story of that one from the weekend was Truro City. Wasn't a great start for most of our teams, but they scored 5 against Welling United to kick off their campaign in style, including this stunning chip. Well done to them. Now, ending with some really, really good news as well. You may remember the story about former Plymouth Argyle footballer Alex Fletcher. He collided with a wall whilst playing for Bath City, suffered a serious head injury, underwent emergency neurosurgery as a result of that last November. Well, in the last few days, he's announced he will be returning to action for Bath City and will be playing for them again. So a really, really great story, and a lot of people, I'm sure, looking forward to seeing him back at Twerton Park.
That is amazing.
That's an amazing return, isn't it? And it takes a lot of courage as well to come back from that.
Absolutely, yeah. And he's been in training with the team, and when I met him just a few months ago, he said he sort of harboured ambitions. Wouldn't say it on camera, but he said he just loves the sport. So yeah, great to see that he's going to be back playing.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much, Ross. Good. A lot to look forward to with Plymouth as well.
Absolutely,
they're doing well in the Championship, and they look like they're settled.
They're really settled. And Bali Mumba as well. Only scores amazing goals, by the way. Like, I remember there's an amazing one against Exeter last season and a stunner away at Ipswich. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you, Ross. Right, obviously the weather's going to play a big part in all of this sport, isn't it? It's not been a great weekend, has it?
No, in a word, it hasn't.
One word.
I mean, a named storm in early August. I mean, this is the first one the Met Office has named as well. I don't know how you guys found it. It was certainly very windy here later on. Well, how was your Saturday? Would you batten down the hatches, or was it not so bad for you two?
Not very good.
Not very good. I was meant to be playing cricket, so I'm kind of knowing my skills. I'm rather glad it rained.
Yeah, you're very humble. You're very humble. But we'll take a look at the satellite radar picture. It's difficult to sort of see the centre of this. It was like a big kind of lump of cloud and what have you. No real kind of defined centre to that low pressure. But it was in the evening as it cleared through. Real strong winds sort of started to whip across good portions of Devon and Cornwall in particular. And that's where we saw some of the highest gusts coming in from a northwesterly direction, which is not even our prevailing wind direction either. That's normally southwesterly. Not only that, but we had some records, some station records for Cardinham and Berry Head. 78 miles an hour at Berry Head, which is really good going any time of the year, really. So yeah, often we talk about temperature and rainfall records, but not necessarily wind. But there you have it. It's been an odd summer. Now, high pressure is close by as we head through the coming few days, and that's good news because we're going to see temperatures picking up a little bit. But then beyond that, we're going to see low pressure then retaking control. I think as we head to the rest of this month, it's going to be somewhere perhaps between what we saw in June and what we saw in July. So mixed fortunes, but on the whole, probably something a little bit quieter, shall we say. And then this kind of northwest-southeast split with low to the northwest of the UK, high to the southeast. Looks like it could well stay for a good portion of the rest of this summer.
Whatever the weather, it always feels like home. Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV West Country weather.
Well then, some much calmer weather as we head through the coming few days. Not completely dry, not oodles of sunshine, but it will be something a little bit more like summer. Tomorrow, bit of a blip, quite a bit of clouds, some outbreaks of rain, then some higher temperatures towards the end of the week. High pressure's close by. Little collection of fronts through tomorrow is that sort of cloudy, damp and quite dreary weather, but that scoots through pretty quickly. And that same high pressure stays close by, which is what's going to inject some of that warm air and give us something a little bit calmer as we head through the coming few days. But we've still got cloud increasing and a few outbreaks of rain rattling through as we head into the first part of this evening. I think most areas tapping into some of that kind of overcast weather by the time we get through to tomorrow morning. A lot of low clouds, some hill fog and some sea fog, and lows of only 12 or 13 degrees. And it stays that way really as we head through the course of Tuesday. Certainly during the morning, some fairly persistent, mostly light rain, which tries to clear through and give us a little bit of brightness later on. But I think the coast will probably stay quite murky. Could be a few showers following as the sunshine tries to break through, and a humid feel, particularly with highs of around 21 Celsius. And high tide as we head through tomorrow. St Mary's about 20 past 10 in the morning and 10 to 11 at night. And then as we head through the second half of the week, well, high pressure is close by, so we will have an improvement in the weather. Drier skies, a bit more sunshine and a bit of heat coming through on Thursday. Short-lived return of normal temperatures, but still some relatively fine weather as we head through the rest of this week. But probably not to these sorts of scenes. Doesn't really say August to you, does it? But this was, of course, Saturday Storm Anthony rattling through Bude, and Dave taking an absolutely brilliant picture of those stormy, boiling seas.
Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV West Country weather.
Charlie, thanks very much. Just looking to our website, and if the Lionesses want any tips for their World Cup quarter-final game this weekend, then look no further than Plymouth super athlete Mark Ormwell.
Yes, the former Royal Marine and triple amputee has been showing off his football skills as he gears up to take on yet another fundraising challenge. To find out more, head to our website. He is so genuinely talented, isn't he? It's just, what's he not good at? Goodbye from the two of us. I'll have the late news for you at 10:30.
Now it's time for the ITV News. From all of us here, have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.